people self-publish for different reasons. Sometimes we want to self-publish like a family heritage, or so there's different things. So it's really about what is it that you want to publish.
Welcome to Make Art, the podcast that helps creatives get creative. Our community of entrepreneurs will show you how to turn your passion into a sustainable income-generating endeavor. Broadcasting from Cape Town, South Africa, here's your host, Jerome Rix.
Hello friends, welcome to Make Art. This is the podcast where we encourage you as creatives to get busy and really leverage your creativity in order to make it at the very least self-sustaining. I know for some of us the dream is to be a full-time creative and to get an admin person to deal with all the boring things like go to your day job and count all your money. But often what we need to do first is try and make your art that you are creating not be a drain on your household income. That's to say, if you are a performance artist or you're a mime, you know, where's all this white makeup coming from? Should it be coming from your money that you're using to buy eggs and bread and milk? Or is there a way that you can leverage your art so that at the very least these expenses are covered and this thing doesn't become a millstone around your head, but instead remains a blessing that brings joy to others and to the world around you? That, of course, is for people who are fond of mimes. I know it's a polarizing subject. I have with me today entrepreneur, photographer, youth worker, public servant, self-published author Kelly Morkel. Kelly, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Jerome. Thank you so much. The mimes just getting to me. Sorry.
There are mimes out there.
No, there is. No, definitely there is. Great mimes. Yeah.
You great mimes, think alike. I want to apologize to all mimes who are listening to this podcast. Kelly certainly is not implying that
no,
you
not at
are.
all.
Yeah.
It's a great art. No, it's a great art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let the mimes have their space. Kelly, I really think I was thinking to myself, what is your superpower? I think it's just that you are insatiably creative. You can't help yourself. And it spills out in these various different forms of expression, all these different things that you are doing. If someone were to ask you, who are you, what do you do, like what would you say?
Oh my word. You know, I think I get this often and I don't know where to start. I think in a nutshell, I just love to empower people. So in every facet of my life, that would be my goal, to empower people and impart knowledge, but also to change the way they possibly look at life and the way they look at themselves. And so to better. If I have to geek out for a moment, I would think of like Maslow's law, and I was like the needs and the hierarchy, and I was like for people to get to that self-actualization, to
Awesome.
realize that there is more to life than just being. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wow, that's quite a comprehensive description. Thank you so much. We've known each other for a long time. We met each other actually through your youth work. So your superpower, I think, is that you're a people person and that you care for people and that you connect people to other people.
Yes.
And if I were to think, we've probably been working together on and off since the early 2000s. You would invite and book us.
Yeah, for church and I mean, yeah, Sunday school and youth, I think it's almost 10 years, more than 10 years now.
Oh, it's definitely more than 10.
Yeah.
So I've been looking at the landmarks. If you've been booking Antioch and you've been booking Project Break Free, we're talking about the Antioch EP came out around 2006.
I got that.
Yeah, so that's long.
That
But
is.
let us not dwell
Yes.
on the inevitable march of time. Let us not dwell on the grim specter of mortality. I might edit some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, Kelly, I'm really, really curious. Your book, Time In,
Yeah.
you self-published it. You came up with this idea, conceptualized it, self-published. This book is now doing so well. It's currently being translated into its third language.
Yep.
Everyone who has it is raving about it. I'm super curious, why self-publish? Why didn't you consider going to a publisher and do the conventional?
Yeah. Sure. It's a lot of people asked me. So the main reason why is I wanted to keep the identity of the book, and I almost want to say the purity of the book. I didn't want to lose any of that. And I was very fortunate enough to work with my brother on it. So I mean, Jared was on Cognitive Design Solution, was on the first episode. But in looking back, for me, I literally sat down to do a lesson for Sunday school, for children's ministry actually. And the next minute I knew, I just kept on writing, and I kept on writing, and I kept on writing. And I mean, before I knew it, I was just busy writing, and I had this book, and then I formalized it, and I pitched it to my brother, which is obviously in the graphic design spectrum, and we spoke about things, and I was like, hey, do you want to do this with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then I think before I decided to self-publish, I did a lot of research. And I think that's the biggest thing in terms of deciding like the pros and cons. And so for me, and I wanted to keep the cost almost on down in terms of I wanted everybody to be able to afford it as well. So there was a lot of different aspects in terms of I wanted to work with my brother. I wanted to work with not just the fact that he's my brother. He's a dope designer. He's a really, really good designer. But I wanted that pureness, and I didn't want my message to be I like filtered through and somebody else to change it to, you know, to the market or what they're looking for. So just to keep it in its purest form, because it wasn't my idea, it was God's idea. Yeah.
Wonderful. Was it easy?
No. Oh my word. No. Sure, you know, I think the easiest part was sitting and prepping for that lesson and everything coming. But the hard work really started after that. I mean, there's a lot of research in terms of self-publishing, from the layout to editing to the printing, to the color you want, to your ISBN number. There is so many things. So for me, a lot of research, sending emails, people getting back to you, even marketing, how you're gonna go about it, how much are you gonna print, and the cost involved. So there's so much things. But for me, it was the research, constantly doing research, putting your feelers out, finding out more about again, self-publishing or sending your manuscript through to a publisher. So no, it wasn't, but was it worth it? Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that a route that you would recommend to other people? Or are you saying, this is so hard, rather not?
So I was like, yeah, you know, it depends on the type of person you are. Because, I mean, I decided to take time out to research and do all, I almost want to say the dirty work. But if you want to do, I almost want to say that this is the book, it's a story that you're telling, there's not much that they're going to change about it, and let's go. Then by all means. But people self-publish for different reasons. Sometimes people want to self-publish like a family heritage, or so there's different things. So it's really about what is it that you want to publish. So I would say if you're going to do short stories or your Mills and Boons or whatever it might be, look at the market, see where it's at, and put your feelers out in terms of two publications, all of those things before you decide. So I would really say look at the genre that you're publishing, because I did a family devotional book. So it's really about that genre of, so I'm not going to say yes and I'm not going to say no.
Okay. Yeah.
It's really a person's prerogative, and obviously if you have time to self-publish, which I didn't really have, but I did.
Okay, so it's a bit more time consuming.
It definitely is, yeah.
I'm assuming it's all the research and the reading and the finding out and the...
Yeah, remember, editing is a process, and it's not just editing words. It's the layout, it's the design, it's the back and forth. And because it's your baby, you are responsible. You have the last say. It's not going to go to someone else and then come back to you and quality control. So you are, you design, you write, you edit, you're the quality controller, so you have all of those hats on at the same time. So it is quite labor intensive. Yeah.
Okay, so it's really about what's fit for purpose for you.
Definitely.
As the author, do you want to keep creative control? Do you want full autonomy? Do you want to be the person?
Most definitely.
Yeah, because as you said, not everybody wants that.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't want to wear all those hats. They want to write the story and move on.
Definitely.
And call it a day. And what's the feedback been like on the book?
Good so far. So my original intent was only for families. So I really wanted parents to experience what I experienced with their children in terms of a session when I have with them. And I mean, when they share, when we pray, all of those things that is like wow moments. And I was like, I really want parents to experience this. But I mean, as this last 2 years has passed, people has been using it in different ways. So I have a few teachers that has bought it and they use it in terms of their class register period, and then they'll use it, during that time. Some use it as icebreakers for the youth. So people's been really using it in different ways, which is absolutely amazing to see that and to see it unfold.
Yeah. Well, we're not here to advertise the book, but I do really feel compelled to say that it's a wonderful tool. If you are someone who is struggling to have devotional time with your family, if you're struggling to come up with topics for devotional time with your family, here's a useful guide that lays out the lessons, and it's well presented, and the layout is really friendly to use, and you can really put some time in with your family.
Spend some time in.
Time in, baby. You're currently working on a second book. I don't know if that's public knowledge yet.
Yes, I'm actually busy with 2.
Wow.
Yes, so lockdown has been really good to me.
Do you also feel guilty when you say that to people?
Yeah, I do. So I am busy. The second one is more focused on a youth aspect, but it's more about your identity and your identity in Christ. And then the second one is more personal, more vulnerable, and that's called Resilience Through Faith, and that's focusing purely on females, both devotional books. And so I was very fortunate, not that I had lockdown because I'm in the health profession, so in between being able to write that. And taking time out to write that, yes. So there is, a book 2 and 3.
Okay.
In the
and
works.
I suppose the real test of how self-publishing went for you is whether or not you're planning on self-publishing those as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, I reflect back and I was like, oh my word. I was like, I must that. There's like so much things I didn't do that I was supposed to. And the biggest thing for me is valuing the product. So early on I mentioned about keeping costs low and affordable and things, and so much that I actually did it to my detriment that I look back and I'm not actually making a profit off my first book. So there is milestones that I've learned now. Will I self-publish again? Definitely. I think the only reason why is because I want to keep that, you spoke about the autonomy, like I want to keep that creative and again do it with cognitive. This time around I have an amazing resource of people. So now I have an established editor, I have established printer and the designer, and so I have a group of my own little publication house that I have,
awesome.
Which is
you
amazing.
Built a team.
I built a team, yes, in this last 2 years.
And you've learned to work together over the space of 2 years.
Definitely. And so now my editing is done by a legitimate editor. She's gone through the works and worked for publication, different publications. So now what's nice about that is that I have this team around me. But for me, looking back, is that I value the products or the books that I'm going to self-publish now much more than my first one, because like we were chatting earlier on, speaking about that value, is because I understand my value now and the value I can give to others. And again, going to Maslow's about empowering people and giving back. So,
So how does that look in the context of publishing these books? How would that translate to actually, if you're talking about valuing yourself and valuing the product, how does that translate to practically to that process?
So in terms of cost or in terms of me as a person?
Well, you said it. When you said I'm going to value it, I know you were talking about you running at a loss, so I suppose monetary
Yes.
first.
So definitely I think they like to call it a cost-benefit analysis. But to go down that stream and really take into account what you are spending your money on. So in this last 2 years, something simple as my traveling and dropping books. So there's very little that I post. I'm very much about the personal. When you buy a book, I like to drop a book off and experience a fellowshipping aspect of it. So I get to minister, I get to share about the book, about myself as the author. So that I really enjoy that personal, one-on-one, whether it is with a family and things. So travel. Petrol costs money. One thing that you really highlighted is packaging costs money. So really take into account that value in terms of money, but also the value in terms of me and my work. Because sometimes I can imagine for artists, you're like, okay, the CD and things, but what about your labor? Like you wrote the lyrics, you came up with the beat, all of those things. And so sometimes we devalue ourselves because, we see the end product, but you forget that you were actually the instrument that put it together in the first place. So for me, in the last 2 years, I've really learned to value my creativeness in terms of the output of it itself. And so much going that extra mile to look at all of the costs involved to actually give a real value to what the product is worth. Yeah,
well, that's really, really well summed up. I think it's a common mistake that we make as creatives. We tend to not pay ourselves when it comes to these kind of things. And again, your time as the author, there's cost involved there. You made creative decisions. You were the person who ultimately had the decision making around that. You did that for free. Your delivery was free. Delivery costs money. And it's a common thing that we do as creatives. Josh is really good at I think translating that and schooling people in that. So if he is taking on a show, he's booking the band, he's got, he's handling marketing, he's dealing with flyer design and all that. And at the end of the day, it's a 5-piece band and he splits the fee 5 ways. Yeah. But actually, he was acting as the booking agent. He was doing PR, he was doing marketing. And so it is important to cost for these things, even if you are only doing it so that you can realize and understand the value you're bringing to the project.
Definitely.
And you're willing to do it, for nothing. You're contributing your time you have some future goal in mind. But I think it's important to keep in mind the real cost of what we are putting in. Also, I like what you mentioned earlier about we have this team now, you've got this group of people, and it's a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
You've worked out how you work together.
Yes.
So you and the designer understand one another, you and the editor understand one another. And it relates to something that I heard Heidi Edeling say once. She says there's no such thing as a solo artist. And it is for me so true in any creative enterprise that you undertake. There's no such thing as somebody who's going to do this alone. And my advice is always to people, build yourself a team.
Definitely.
Get yourself a group of people who know more than what you know and get them around you. Surround yourself with capable, brilliant people who are nice to work with.
Yes. True, yes.
Because you want to keep working with them.
No, definitely. That's important, yes.
Yeah. Kelly, also, you are seriously starting. I know you've always been an avid photographer. I'll always see you taking pictures of your family, your nephews, and your extended family and so forth. But it seems like you're pursuing that a little more seriously now. You've started advertising.
Yes. So at the end of last year, well, it's kind of been in the pipeline. So I work 9 to 5. I'm a government employee.
There's no need to give the big sigh before you say you work a 9 to 5. I know you're excited about your work, so this must just have been a hard week.
Yeah, no. What ultimately I wanted or I would like to do is that the photography to produce money for the publications. And so it's all in, let's just say in practical terms, in one bank account. And so the money I get from photography is going to feed into the self-publication books and things, and maybe even more going further on. But also is that the ministry, God is Kodesh is the name of my brand, is that everything underneath that there's ministry and reason for it. And so this is one of the branches underneath God is Kodesh. So there's a self-publishing, and then there's the photography, and there's one or two others still to come. But I'm still kind of working on it and slowly growing it in that sense. So for me, everything is about experience. And so the photography is really wanting to do something niche and different. So that's actually the reason why I want to, start, besides being a branch, but so that it's like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And overall, the concern is going forward.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's a powerful lesson in there, and something that I just want to highlight in case somebody is listening to this and they've glossed over that, is that you've got this one business that is funding this other arm. Because in the case of publishing, I would imagine there's a long period of time where there's no money coming in.
Yeah.
But there's money that needs to go out. You need to pay the designer, you need to pay the editor, you have expenses.
Yes.
But you don't have a book that you can sell in order to recover that cost yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite clever that you've got this one thing that's running and it's bringing in money on a continual basis, that you can push cash flow in and keep things ticking over until such time as the books have arrived. And
no, definitely. And that's why some people would rather send it to a publication house, because you just give your manuscript, you don't fork out anything, and that's it, and they run with it. And then as soon as then you obviously get, the percentage back. Obviously you don't get 100% back. I mean, they take their cut and you get your cut. And so it's like now you have to like plow into it and seed into it first before you actually see the product. So that's also like, the pros and cons with regards to that. But again, for me, worth it.
Yeah. No, that's really clever. And I think it's something that can apply across disciplines to anything where somebody is busy with something that is going to you're going to be able to reap the rewards of it much later. To consider having something else that in the short term can sustain that dream and can sustain the project as it's going along. So, Kelly, we've now heard about your photography business. We've heard about the books that are incredibly time consuming, as you've said. You're working a 9 to 5, also very responsible work. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
It's consumer protection, guys. Kelly is going out there and she's making sure that we are safe when we eat at restaurants and so forth, without going into too much detail. My question is, at what point do you decide, okay, there's enough stuff on my plate, I'm not going to take on more right now?
Yeah. I think that's been the hardest thing in the last 2 years for me. Is like, what do you prioritize? What is important? I mean, just add on to that, I'm also busy with my master's. So it's like, where do you find the time? Like, oh my word. Sometimes I ask myself, where do I find the time?
Oh, I was going to ask you, where do you find the time?
So for me, I've really learned to prioritize, and also is like, what is important to me. So that is been the biggest thing for me in the last 2 years. So obviously 9 to 5 is not going to go away. That's my bread and butter. It allows me to pay the bills and everything.
Yeah, and to eat, which is nice.
Definitely, yeah.
It's nice to eat.
Yeah, eat. Have coffee maybe every now and then. But to be honest, and this is going to sound funny, I have a calendar. And my friends laugh at me when they say, okay, you probably need to check your calendar before you say yes to a coffee date or something. And it's just something that holds me accountable. So like, how am I going to structure my time? And I don't, it was in a workshop or something. I can't remember. I think the first year of my master's. And they said that put in everything in your diary that you want to do. And find out where are the hours that you that you have available. And in the 2 hours or 3 hours, you push. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I don't have to sacrifice. Like, you do have to sacrifice to an extent, but I'm being just, different perspective in terms of I want to spend time with my family and I want to do this. But at the same time, there's times when I had to say no. There's really times when I had to say no. So for me, what works great for me is block weeks. So take a week out and just focus on one thing. And sometimes that's taking off leave and working on my master's, taking off and working on the book or whatever it might be. Or say every Tuesday at this time, I'm going to work on my photography skills, whatever it might be. So really like blocking out sections in the week to say, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really solid advice.
Yeah.
I think there's some gold in there for people who are struggling or finding it difficult, or even at the point where they need to think about different ways of managing their time. Because what I try and do again is I try and defer. You need to, as you say, prioritize. And then defer some of your things until next week or next month or next quarter or next year if need be. But if you decide that the important things are important, then the things that do not fall under that category, they need to wait. And
most definitely.
Kelly, for people who are curious about the book, people who are looking to buy time in, people who are curious about your next book that you're busy with, who perhaps want to book you for photography services, or who are just interested in following your journey and seeing what happens next, and perhaps want to congratulate you once you've passed your master's. How can people keep in touch with you, and how can people follow you?
Yeah, so both on Facebook and Instagram, Goddess Kodesh is the brand where you will find time in. And then GK Photography is obviously the photography page, which is both on Facebook and Instagram. So on social media, you can find me there. Send me a DM. But it's available and the books are available. And I mean, timing is also Tate Psalm, so there's a Afrikaans version. And then the Xhosa version is in process for that. And then hopefully by the end of this year, the other two will be complete, because one of them was already back from the editors. So it has to go to the graphic design. So it's working in progress. So hopefully towards the end of the year, there will be 2 more books.
That's all very exciting.
Yeah.
Can we normalize DMing again? I think it's gotten such a bad reputation. When you hear DM, you immediately think, isn't it?
Guys, professional DM if you want to buy a book. If you want to buy a book, you DM me.
Very important, yes. DM is for books, it's for business services. Let's make that clear. Kelly, thank you so much for your time. This has been so revealing. You've just given so much gold, so much information that I believe is useful and that can be transformational for people who are keen to apply it and to take the time to try and apply it in their lives. And I really think that there's value here for somebody who is looking to balance multiple projects and multiple streams of creativity that they are busy with, and try and make that all happen under one umbrella. And here you are doing it all while you're finishing your masters. I think that's just remarkable.
Thanks so much, Raman. Thank you so much for inviting me. Really enjoyed this time, spending and chatting, and also just realizing, oh my word, I did this. I mean, taking time to reflect, and also just listening to the other podcasts. There's so much insight. So I really enjoying this Make Art series of yours, and I'm gonna stay tuned for more to come. Very exciting. Thank you so much.
There you heard it, folks. You need to stay tuned. You need to go listen to the others as well. Go check the others out. Thank you so much. That was Kelly Morkel. Friends, if you are interested in supporting the Make Art podcast and ensuring its continued survival, there are ways that you can contribute, and there are ways that you can just show your love. You can go check out patreon.com/Jerome Rex, and there's some information in terms of how you can make a small contribution every month, just in order to cover the expenses of producing this podcast and keeping it on the air, as it were, or on the internet. This has been Make Art with Jerome Rex.